Bharat's entire culture, this entire great civilization, Sevadaar, volunteering or volunteer, is the foundation of this culture. The more closer you are to the Sangha, the more closer you are to the deity, the more closer you are to your Guru, things happen. A silent explosion of inner transformation happens in that proximity, in that closeness. How do you create that proximity? Seva will allow us not only to deepen our sadhana, but will also allow us to create a very beautiful, joyful, celebrative world around us. Namaste. I receive a lot of requests, a lot of questions from people, from friends to understand what is volunteering. Let's look at the history first today. This term called volunteer was introduced in the West during the American Civil War. We're talking about 1600s. And this concept of being a volunteer was introduced because primarily of the military services. During the American Civil War, they inducted a lot of volunteers to be in the army. But if we look at the Eastern culture, especially the Bharatiya culture, this word called volunteering, in Hindi we call it Seva. And the volunteer, the one who performs the volunteer service, the volunteer, we call Sevadaar. Let's look at the Indian context of volunteering or being a volunteer. I want to take you to very deep into the ancient history of India. You'll be surprised. Can you guess who was the first recorded Sevadaar or a volunteer in the Indian history? You'll be shocked and surprised. The first volunteer in this land was a great being called Nandi. Yes, Nandi, whom you know as the bull of Shiva. As the story goes, Nandi was not a bull originally. He was also a human being. I'll not go into the details of that story, but Nandi was in love with Shiva. He wanted to be with Shiva all the time. He wanted to be in close proximity of the Shiva. So he approached Shiva saying that, I want to be with you, sir. For the rest of my life, I want to be with you. Make me your slave. Shiva said, no, Nandi, there is no slave. Every being is eternally free, liberated. You cannot be my slave, Nandi. Then Nandi requested, but I want to be with you for the rest of my life. I just want to be with you. And that's when Shiva agreed to induct Nandi as his Sevadaar, as his volunteer, the first volunteer. And from that time onwards, Nandi, till now, we believe Nandi is still with Shiva, serving him, being with him. Whatever Shiva wants Nandi to do, Nandi performs that action. Nandi is constantly with Shiva, first volunteer. From again this history, I give you another example of the second great volunteer we had, Hanumanji. Hanumanji had deep love for Rama in his heart. He again, like Nandi, wanted to be with Sri Ram all the time. He wanted to serve Sri Ram all the time. He wanted to be in close proximity with Sri Ram. So when the great war of between Sri Ram and Ravana was about to take place, Hanumanji offered himself to Sri Ram, that I am your volunteer, O God, O Lord. Make good use of me. Carve me the way you want to. I'm using the word carve me. Carve me the way you want to. I just want to be with you. And since then, we believe in India that Hanumanji is still on earth. He's still a volunteer of Sri Ram. He's a Sevadaar of Sri Ram. And he's continuing to do his work wherever the devotee of Sri Ram is. And when they call Sri Ram for anything, they receive the blessings of Hanumanji, even the intervention of Hanumanji, because he's a great volunteer of Sri Ram's work on earth. Now let's look at the current context. Bharat's entire culture, this entire great civilization, Sevadaar, volunteering or volunteer, is the foundation of this culture. All the great institutions, from the learning institutions of Nalanda, Takshila, to the great spiritual schools that we build, or great spiritual traditions that we build, the Aadhar of all of that was in Seva, in the voluntarism. If you look at your lives, most of the time whatever we do it as a transactional process. You do this for somebody and somebody does something for you. It's always an exchange, it's always a transaction which is taking place. Rarely we do something where we are not the beneficiary. We are just doing it as an offering to the world, offering to the divine, offering to our Guru, offering to our Sangha. Now, what is the relevance of volunteering in our life? Why should we look at it? Why India's culture is built on the concept of Seva? You see, we want to be closer to our deities. We want to be closer to our Gurus. Now, for that to happen, a lot of purification is needed. How do we purify ourselves? How do we purify our bhav? I'm recognizing that all of us have certain purity in the heart, and that is the reason we want to walk the spiritual path. We want to walk the path of inner liberation, finding the truth, finding who we are, connecting with the divinity, connecting with this entire cosmos. We are on that path. I recognize that. But our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, our bhavs are not pure enough. This entire journey is just not about your effort. This journey is about your purification. The more purified we are, the more closer we get connected to our Gurus, our deities, to the eternal truth. It's a matter of inner purification. How do you do that? That is the reason ancient rishis in India created this concept of seva, voluntarism. When you do an act, when you do something which without any ulterior motive of gaining anything out of it, just as an offering, the process when you switch off from being a transactional being, now you're offering something to somebody without any ulterior motive. You don't want anything in return. In that, the purification of your inner bhav, purification of your thoughts, purification of your inner energies start to happen. This purification cannot happen through any other way. At least I do not know any other way. So seva becomes the first fundamental process through which the inner purification happens. That's the first gain that one gets by not being transactional, but you still get the gain of that, the fruit of that, the result of that as inner purification. Number 2, I always say that spiritual process is a very intimate process. The more closer you are to the Sangha, the more closer you are to the deity, the more closer you are to your Guru, things happen. A silent explosion of inner transformation happens in that proximity, in that closeness. How do you create that proximity? So seva becomes a way for you to be closer to your Sangha, to your Guru, to your divine. Because when you do the seva, you are in a certain zone of doing Guru's work, doing the work which is important for Jagat Kalyana, for the well-being of the entire world. You are in a certain energy field then. And this field is governed by the deity, by the Shiva. And then below the Shiva, this field is governed by the Guru. You become part of that powerful field. You start to feel, you start to experience a deep inner proximity with your Sangh, with your Guru, with the divine. So volunteering, meaning seva, allows you to do that. Third thing, no matter who we are, no matter what we do, no matter where we are in our sadhana, this inner abhimana that takes root in us. Abhimana means ego. The illusionary sense of I am doing something, I am gaining something, I am important. This illusionary sense that I am doing. We forget that we're not doing anything. It's being done through us. We're just a medium. We're just a channel. We're just allowing the divine process to happen through us for the larger well-being of the world. But in this process, the abhimana takes root. The sense of ego takes root. I've seen a lot of devotees on the spiritual path, on the sadhana. They get stuck with this abhimana. It kills their journey. It halts their journey. They get into a negative spiral. How do you kill this abhimana? Again, seva. The more you are in the Seva-Bhaav, the more slowly this abhiman starts to dissolve. You don't have to attack this abhiman directly. You see, ego is more like a phantom. It's there in the thought, but it's just not there. It's an illusion. It's a darkness. You can't fight with the darkness directly. You have to create light. So seva allows you to create that zone of light, where the darkness of abhiman or the ego starts to disappear on its own. You don't have to fight with it. The more you are in Seva-Bhaav, in some time you will start to see that you're becoming like water. Pure, crystal, divine, in an absolute cosmic flow as water. You don't have any abhiman left anymore. You're just flowing the way Ishvara, your Guru, wants you to flow. Abhiman starts to disappear. That's the third fruit we get as we enter deep into the Seva-Bhaav, into the voluntarism. Fourth, the other day somebody was asking me in a satsang that spiritual journey feels very lonely. We all feel lonely. If you see in the world, most of the humanity, no matter how rich they are, how wealthy they are, most of the humanity is struggling with this disease called loneliness. We feel alone. And because of this loneliness, we feel weak. We lack strength to do something, to be something, to realize who we are. The spiritual strength is low. And that's the reason people are falling victim to this disease called loneliness. And now it's giving rise to a lot of mental well-being issues. But to me, spiritual journey is not loneliness. It's not a journey of seclusion. Well, you can choose some period of seclusion for your inner work. But otherwise, this journey is of connecting. That's the whole point. We've become disconnected with the laws of nature. We're disconnected from earth, we're disconnected from sun, we're disconnected from prana. We're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected with our own self. Our mind, our hearts are not in harmony. We're disconnected with the Guru. We're disconnected with the Sangha. We're disconnected with the Ishvara, the presence of divine energy, divine field. We're disconnected from that. So Seva allows you to start to build these deeper connections. You get plugged into a community. You form a community. You plugged into a strong energy field. You start to plug in with your own self. Your body, mind, and your heart starts to come into a certain harmony. Everything starts to get connected in your own inner field and also in the outer field. So all the loneliness starts to disappear. With this entire cosmos, we start to feel one. We give birth to a new Sangha, to a new community. We get connected to a community. So all the loneliness disappears. That's the fourth thing that happens. Fifth thing. Seva is joy. Seva is celebration. How? As I said earlier, whatever you do in life, there's always some ulterior motive that you have. You're doing something in order to receive something. It's a transaction, it's a business deal. No, you know the fact of a business deal? Every business deal, when two parties come together to make that deal, both of them, after the deal is completed, both of them walk out of the deal in most of the cases feeling they could have done it better, they could have negotiated it better. So nobody actually gains from a deal. Both parties feels they could have done much better, they could have got little more money or profit out of it. Both parties feel that. So deal is always a loss-making process. Hence, anything that we do transactional in life, it yields to sorrow. Sometimes you're able to see this sorrow in the short term. Sometimes it is visible in the long term. But transactions will lead to sorrow. Only when we learn to do things non-transactionally, as an offering, as a seva, as a service. You see, the world, the cosmos, the nature, sun is not giving you its energy and sunlight as a transaction. It's an offering from sun god to all of us. We survive on this sun energy. Water is not demanding anything from us of the rivers. It's just nourishing the whole earth. The whole of nature is non-transactional. That is the reason the whole of nature is celebrating. Only human beings have become transactional, and hence we are not celebrating. For us, life is not a joy. For us, life is hard, heavy, tough, sorrowful. Because we've introduced this element of transaction in our life. It's not the law of nature. So seva allows you to break the loops of the transaction, do everything as an offering, and thereby sow the seeds of joyfulness, of celebration. Look at the Sevadaars, volunteers who are totally immersed in the volunteer activity, whatever they are doing. Their faces are joyful. Their energies are charged. Why? Because they've broken this loop. They are now in the realm of the existence. They're now plugged into with nature. They've learned this law from nature. That you just offer whatever you have. The more, as Jesus said, as every guru on this earth have said, the more you offer, the more you receive. It's like the philosophy or the science on which a well works. Kuwa. The more water you take from the well, the more water through the underground channels of water gets filled into the well. You stop taking water from the well and the water becomes stinking, non-usable, and slowly the water disappears. Sukh jata hai pani. We are like that well. The more we offer ourselves for the well-being of existence, for the world around us, as our seva, the more is given to us. We are filled more then. Next, Krishna, the whole philosophy of Krishna in Gita is Nishkam Karma. Nishkam Karma means desireless action, meaning when with an action you do not attach any desire of a certain result or fruit that you want to get out of it. We call it Nishkam Karma. It's a practice. Unless you're able to do the Nishkam Karma, you're never able to get out of the karmic loop. Even if you do positive or negative, there's always a karmic loop. How do you break this karmic loop? As Shiva said, how do you become liberated? How do you become free? Only one way. You start to do Nishkam Karma. Non-desireful action. When you do that, the bonds of the karmic bondages are released. How do you practice Nishkama Karma? Again, volunteering allows you to do that. So to me, volunteering is really a sadhana process. It's unfortunate that across the world I look at the data, unfortunately especially in the West, they calculate the number of hours in a certain year the entire population has done volunteering. And what is the financial value of that? I think about a decade ago I was reading a research. America said that our citizens have done volunteering worth $175 billion in a year. In Bharat we never do that. There is no value attached to volunteering. Because when you're doing something as seva to somebody else, you're not doing it as, again I'm saying, there's no financial value attached to this. We don't look at it in that term. Rather, we look at term that my Guru, my Sangha, my Shiva has found me worthy to allow me to do something for them. It's an absolute opposite way of looking at it. When you do seva, the bhav in the heart is, thank God. I am worthy that my friends, my Guru, somebody has chosen me or thought I am worthy enough to do this for them. That is the reason when we do dana, donation in this culture, we don't feel pride of doing the dana, doing the donation, to giving donation to somebody. Rather, we feel gratitude in our heart that the other received what we wanted to give them. The other allowed us to offer. The other felt I'm worthy enough to offer something. It's a chance, it's an opportunity. We consider it as an opportunity. Because as I said, these 6-7 tremendous gains in sadhana that we get when we do volunteering. That is the reason this entire culture is built on this root of seva. Seva-Bhaav is very strong in us. I believe more we tune into this Seva-Bhaav, more we acknowledge this and plug this into our life, we will be able to create a very joyful world around. Seva will allow us not only to deepen our sadhana, but will also allow us to create a very beautiful, joyful, celebrative world around us. So think about this. Wherever you get a chance, whosoever feels you worthy enough to allow you to do seva, consider it as a blessing, as a great joy, as your great achievement, as a great gratitude that you've got this chance. Thank you.